Thank you, Dave. Then we'll go to Sam, and I'll keep calling them other people. So, Sam, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing this together, Paul. Again, I see a lot of familiar faces here. David just about covered the first generation of the ideas that we've gone through in terms of what the state is thinking about. So I personally have been working with C10 Labs, particularly around the concept of the Dimensional AI Hub. And at this point, so I have various affiliations here and interests. Another affiliation you can write down is CIC. Most of you are probably familiar with Cambridge Innovation Center. My father founded that organization, and many of us here, I'm sure I've seen your faces in the buildings, so I know you're familiar with it to some extent. And one of the ideas that is on the table that I'd like to add to your list, Paul, is something that I will 100% be working on in the next weeks, is to look at where there is real space for such a institute to exist, perhaps taking some inspiration from what you're talking about, John, but particularly looking at where are our founders in this field that we are looking at able to co-locate and create a real physical community beyond just the programs and the institutions and the universities they might be affiliated towards. And I think that's something that really is achievable over the short term. So I'm going to add that to your short-term list, Paul.
Fabulous. Thank you. Go ahead, JP.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, thanks, Paul, for bringing us together. This is a great initiative. So my background is, in marketing communication, but recently I've completed a program called Advanced Leadership Initiative at Harvard University, focused on social impact, and also recently wrote a book on exploring the intersection of AI and spirituality and some of the wisdom traditions. Anyway, so I think a lot of my interests lie in education and how do we bring AI to young people, the high school students, because they're the future. And there's some initiatives, but I don't think there's enough going on to really get young people understand the impact of AI and how they can shape the future. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
And so what's tactical in the next 30 days? Program or ideas or research?
In my mind, some kind of research to just get a overview of what's going on in terms of getting young people involved with AI in Massachusetts.
Great.
JP, maybe to push that kind of one step further, it'd be interesting to identify one or two organizations that have keen interest kind of in the K-12 space and potentially see from a workforce development perspective, just because that will probably be a key initiative. If there's a partner that potentially wants to roll out a high school AI training program, or just what that looks like and who else might be thinking about it that's not involved with this group yet.
Yeah, I love the workspace angle. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, JP. Go ahead, Jess.
Hey, everyone. Jess Lynch. I grew up in the Boston area, lived in Boston, went to Babson, was a founder of a marketing tech company, Wishroute, that I sold last year. And I joined my now partner, Greg, at Raise Capital. Greg Raise will be joining going forward, but he's on a plane and he really wanted to be here. So I told him I would join you all and report back to him. So he'll be in future meetings. But him and I started Raise Capital, that invests in pre-seed companies using AI to transform the way the world works and how humans live day to day. So we just finished our first cohort. David, Sam, excited to chat with you guys about what you're doing. Definitely alignment. And now we're raising a fund around our approach. And for me, I'd be curious what Greg's take is, but I find that a lot of public policy isn't grounded in actually tangibly helpful things for businesses day to day. And so being able to influence and provide feedback to any larger state initiatives around this would be where I see our opportunity to make sure that whatever is put into practice is actually going to make a difference.
That's great. Thank you. Welcome, Jess. Go ahead, Luda. Then we'll go to Amun. Go ahead, Luda.
Hi, I am Luda Kopkina. My background is So technical is in computer science, AI. I am a corporate VC that stepped out of my corporate role in DSM. This is a large multinational materials company based in Denmark. So the reason I would like to participate in this, and Paul, thanks for taking the first step, is because I really feel that we have a lot going on in Massachusetts in AI, but it's fragmented and people do not, young people are not really necessarily aware that we have a lot of VCs, there's lots of programs. You can start a startup and be backed and incubated here. It's just all fragmented. So, I really think that there's a lot in this initiative that we're undertaking here that we can do. So my suggestion for the first 30 days is to get a sense from maybe a couple of large companies of what their issue problem is with this. Is my view or our view different from theirs? And would they be willing to step in and put some money into this type of a undertaking? So get a perspective from their sense, their side.
Great. Thank you, Luda. Go ahead, Mamoon.
Yes, I'm Mamoon Yunus. I'm the CEO of Forum Systems and its subsidiary Quantum Gears. We've been in Boston. We're a Boston-based company. I've been in Boston since 1991, and we've kind of seen technology evolve since 1998, and the whole ML wave for the past about a decade or so, and most recently in the generative AI side. And I'm just listening to the team here, want to really echo that my interest is again on how do we get our rich academic community to accelerate in just from a curriculum perspective. I feel that the West Coast has been ahead of us just if I look at the curriculum at Berkeley, at Stanford, and so on. We've got a really rich community, but somehow we haven't aligned ourselves really well from an innovation perspective to get our folks ready. We hire very aggressively in our company, and although we find folks that are good at the foundational things, that they don't have the specialist skills that we're looking for. We do a lot of internships. I bring people from high school, from in colleges, in the undergrad programs, and we end up training them. And I'm happy to continue training them. But I think there is a gap that is in Massachusetts, unfortunately. And given the density of academics here, given the density of our intellectual power here, I somehow feel that we're behind, and that we need to continue to push and enhance our pipeline of students coming out that have the right skill sets and not just general purpose skill sets. So that's kind of my interest in how do we influence that.
That's great. And Mamoon, what tactically could be done in 30 or 60 days to start chipping away at that?
I've had some informal conversations with the MIT community, the professors there, and how we can start influencing some of the courses there. So that's one touch point I'd be really interested in. It's same thing with Northeastern, with UMass. I think Paul, you and I talked about this, and I'm getting a pretty strong cohort of hires coming in from UMass Amherst, and I think a lot of people don't know about it. So there are these pockets where I think we can do an outreach and say, hey, this is specifically what we're looking for in the next cohort to come out of your universities, and start influencing their curriculum. That's one part that I think we should approach. And the other one is, how do we integrate businesses more closely with the universities? And I'll give you an example. I took a classic, everybody takes this course in our space. This is a CS 230. Andrew Ng teaches this course at Stanford. As a part of that course, there were about 50 businesses that came in and said, hey, can your students volunteer for these projects? We have these projects for you. Perfect idea. Everybody wants to jump on that. Doesn't cost anything. Why aren't businesses like ours proposing projects back into the MIT curriculum as a set of businesses getting together and saying, hey, here are 20 projects. Every semester, we're going to give you a set of projects. You guys need to deliver that as a part of your curriculum. And if we need to sponsor it, we sponsor it, have an award for it, and so on. But building something like that, and not just as a one-off, but as a central part of their computer science program, not like an entrepreneur special class that they have to take. This should be central to their program.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Mamoon. Ignacio, go next.
Hello, everyone. Ignacio Castro here. I'm wearing a couple of different hats today. I'm the managing partner of 128 BC, which is an upcoming pre-seed fund that we are raising right now, focusing on AI B2B companies. But also, I've been working with Avi Javad on IAC and kind of joining the group to help with their different activities. So Avi and I were kind of trying to figure out how we can collaborate and support this effort as well. And to the question, Paul, about kind of the 30-60 tactical, I think when I think about what you were saying about how do we keep the talent here and the startups, I will even argue that we should even go beyond that, which is how do we even attract more, right? And start kind of getting people from California to come here. And I think what we need is we need to articulate the ecosystem, right? This is a journey, right? You start from the idea and you continue going forward. So how do we make sure that all of the resources that we have here are visible for people that is just getting started with an idea, what resources they will need, how do they go from there to angel investment to kind of and continue that process. So I think Luda said also is very fragmented, but the more we and also start finding the gaps, right? Where are the holes that we might have? Maybe it's early stage, maybe it's later stage, I don't know. And start seeing how we can fill those gaps, right? So I think to me is kind of the ecosystem map of what do we have here in this area and how is linked and articulated in the journey that this talent and these startups have, right?
Yeah, that's great. And I heard a couple things. One was mapping the resources. The second one, you almost implied, is like, what's the commercial? What's the 90-second commercial and why to come? Am I hearing that correctly, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should attract. I mean, we should not just be fine with keeping the talent, but also how do we bring them back? I think it's people go to Silicon Valley because of the density and the sources of capital, I think, in my mind, and even the mindset. And I think we have a lot of that here, right? So I think we can definitely be more aggressive in terms of promoting that.
That's great. Thank you. Aaron, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, it's great to meet everyone. I don't think I know anyone here. So I'm with Basis Tech. Basis Tech for a long time was a company. We powered multilingual search in almost every major search engine and worked on applications like border security, watch listing, anti-money laundering. We recently sold the bulk of the company and we're transitioning to be more of an innovation space based in Somerville. We have a pretty large facility near Teal Square. We also have investments in about 12 startups, at least 6 or 7 of which use the space here in Somerville. So we're sort of entering our next chapter, trying to figure out, what it means to be in an innovation accelerator space, what kind of investments we want to make. Do we, want to be a traditional venture fund or something a little different? And we've always had a heavy focus on machine learning and AI. So we have a large language model meetup we've been doing here that's been wildly popular. We've been working with ODSC on that. We also have quite a few affiliations with CIC. We were located there for a long time before we had this facility. So we're kind of new to this whole idea of getting involved in influencing. And then for the second part of what can we do in short term, one thing that's really been impressed upon me is just gathering people in the proximity. Via those large language model meetups, we happen to have a Equestrian Business School BU professor here in the building. And just sheer proximity, because he happens to live in this building. We have some of the students now working on some of the startups inside the accelerator space. So I really just think that's like a wonderful opportunity that no formal program could have brought about. It was just pure people being near each other with similar interests, and how can we make more of that happen?
Aaron, I think you guys are in Davis Square, right, off the red line?
Yeah, we're between Davis Square and Teal Square, so not maybe 8-minute walk from Davis.
You guys have a really cool space. I can vouch. I'm good friends with Carl Hoffman, actually, your founder, and it's I've heard a little about what you're doing, Aaron. It's really great to meet you. I think last program, I think maybe you weren't there, but or maybe you were and I didn't see you, but I'll look out for your face next time.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say you look quite familiar. I thought I didn't know anyone here, but
Sam's always the taller one in the back.
Exactly, with the curly hair. It's easy to
Curly
find
hair.
me.
Well, thank you, Aaron, and Aaron, welcome. Go ahead, Sharna. Sharna, did we lose you?
No, I'm here. Sorry about that. Trying to get off mute. Hi, everyone. And Paul, thank you for putting this together. I'm just super excited to be part of this group here. I'm currently the AI Center of Excellence leader at an engineering company, but I'm not representing them. I have my own company called Boston Insights Group as well. And I'm very passionate about AI education, and something that I've done in my previous role as well is just create programs around AI 101, which I've found very beneficial in my previous organization and even this organization, to just make everybody, as many people as we can, familiar with just the basics of what AI can or can't do. And then also speak to generative AI about the powers of generative AI and how it relates to the work this team will do. So that was sort of the brief introduction. And I live in Westwood, and we are about 7 friends, all interested in AI, and we formed a Westwood Women in AI group, and we meet on a monthly basis. So if there's anything that group can do for this group, that would be an exciting opportunity as well.
And Sharna, what's something that we could get done in 30 or 60 days that you think would be meaningful?
Yeah, like I said, like AI education, if there's an opportunity to educate groups of people around AI 101, that's not difficult to do.
Great. Well, thank you, Sharna. And Judah just joined. Can you hear us?
I can. Hey, Paul. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. Ran into some client meetings this morning.
No problem at all. Yeah. So Judah, we're just kind of going through and introducing ourselves and sharing one thing that we think would make a difference if it got done in the next 60 to 90 days. It's tactical. So go ahead, Judah. Introduce yourself.
Put me on the spot right away. Hey,
well.
everybody. I'm Judah Phillips. I'm the co-founder of a company called Squark, investor, author, professor, and I host the Boston Generative AI Meetup, and have been in the tech industry for about 27 years now, and excited to be here. I've been working with AI and ML full-time since 2014 or so. And in terms of like one thing that we could do, I may want to swing back and ruminate or reflect a little bit more, but it's a really great question. In the past, when I've been in organizations, around analytics and data as that was emerging in the aughts, one of the things that the associations put together, and I'm not sure how effective it is or how well adopted it is, but from a marketing perspective and a visibility perspective, it gets people pumped, even if it may not have any teeth. It's kind of like a code of conduct. Like we as AI professionals in Boston, Massachusetts, believe AI systems should be X, regulated, turn into Skynet, right? Replace everybody's jobs. Not replace everybody's jobs. I'm joking, right? But that's what I mean, right? can we offer a statement from practitioners who actually know this stuff that can help the bureaucrats in Boston who are forming this AI alliance, right? Or this AI task force? How can we assert a message to them so that they represent us effectively? So that would be my thought.
That's great. Thank you, Judah. Any
Thank
other
you.
people that I missed on the intros? I think I've captured most everyone. So thanks, everyone. So I'm not, what if we just take the next few minutes, next maybe 10 minutes on what problem are we trying to solve? Are there 15 problems? It feels like a whole host of potential problems. Or is there a problem? Maybe there's not a problem.
Maybe I can take a stab at it, Paul. I take some stock in the commonalities between what people said, in my view, and honestly, what I keep hearing is that our innovation ecosystem has all of the ingredients of talent and capital and ideas and practitioners and so forth, and it has too little alignment. And so, without being too brisk about it, I think that frankly, everyone here is in some way mentioned something that has to do with a sense of unity in the ecosystem, what the ecosystem is expressing as intentions for how AI should be developed, both in a physical sense from the community side and directionally. And that gathering probably enough people under a single voice to express that would be really important, because I think, and this goes to the problem statement, we've got a tendency, I think, to each organize our own events and each organize our own little separate corners of the world. I think just represented in this meeting, we've got probably everyone having conjured up a community at some point in time, spent money and time on that. And we haven't necessarily moved to, in unity, consolidate that into a community that exists on a more day-to-day basis with stated goals and values. How did I do, Paul?
Paul,
Well,
may I?
Yeah. Go ahead, Luda.
Yeah, I totally agree. But to add to it, or maybe put a little header on top of it, is what bugs me is that I think there's a 50-some% of the talent that we produce here in the Northeast in AI, and yet there's only a very small percentage that stays here. They leave, and we don't know the reason, but that's what bugs me. And so I'd like to see a hub being well recognized around the country, that it's AI hub, right? It is kinda, but nobody knows about it. And so well, that's what Yusem said. It's fragmented effort. We kind of have it, but we don't articulate it, and thus people leave. So yeah.
And Luda, can you talk more about that? Because that's one thing I'm trying to understand. Is that because students come with the expectation that they're only coming for education and leave, or is it a subset that say actually want to work in AI? I came to Boston for education. There is no AI in Boston. That's why I need to go to New York or San Francisco.
I don't think if I were a student and look around, yeah, there's an incubator here, there's something at MIT, but where do I go? What do I do? How do I get a team together if I haven't gotten it already? Who are the people that would help me? Where's the network of VCs? They're here. We know they are here, but they don't. I don't think they see it.
I kind of think I'm in that community. The VCs do see it. They just get asked for a lot of money from a lot of people, and they don't have a lot of time. So
No.
you
VCs
just have
see
to
it.
kind of get there. I mean, Glasswing is pure. We don't have to debate it, but like there are a ton of AI focused funds, and there's just some maybe pink elephants to get there. You got to move through. You know what I mean? And like one of the ways that I grew Squark, because we bootstrapped it, was I granted money to Northeastern and developed a group of 400 students with a professor that do AI stuff in Boston. And here's the facts why they don't stay. 80% of them aren't Americans, right? And so like one of the things I've done is I've sponsored a bunch of OPT postdocs, postgrads to stay in the country for 3 years. But like it's very expensive. And the laws are not necessarily favorable to keeping foreign students in Boston, you know? And then the other issue is obviously, this is not an inexpensive place to live. You know what I mean? And like, I don't think the salaries have caught up. So I think like it's not necessarily like lack of opportunity to find investment or lack of an AI community. I've been doing for the last year a Boston Gen AI up at Microsoft every 2 months that gets 400 people to show up with 2 LinkedIn posts. And I've had like the top venture capitalists in the Boston area who actively fund hundreds of companies speak at it. So like there's without a doubt like an interest. I think the challenge is like there's economic factors and like, you know, civil government factors that prevent, you know, AI from adopting. Meanwhile, you know, we're spending 200, but I won't even go there, right? But $250 million to house, you know, illegal immigrants. Right? But the students that are building AI in Boston can't stay in the country. So it kind of goes back to like, what is that AI task force about? You know, and I completely agree with your thesis that like, if they're not staying here, there's a reason and that needs to be addressed. But I don't necessarily think it's like people or there's not enough money or there's not enough events. It's just expensive and hard to stay.
Judah, can you share more on the cost of living? So it seems like a portion of the students go to San Francisco because they believe that's where they have to be. So it's not cheaper there. Is your point that some people feel it's just expensive? I can't get paperwork to stay, and therefore
we don't have any data. So like, you know, I've seen things on X and like, you know, some Sankey diagrams that sort of show here's a ribbon of people leaving Boston. So like, the premise of like the discussion that AI doesn't exist or like people are leaving, like show me the data first, because I don't even agree with the premise, but I could be wrong. And you know, my experience with the students is that the majority of them are foreign, and when they do go, they go to like big tech, right? And if they're good, and if they're not good, you know, in this environment, they don't get jobs. But so I, you know, the salaries I've been asked to give entry-level AI people would melt your brains, you know, given how old probably some of us are on the call and like the salaries that we've seen in our lives. So not all companies can afford, right, that talent. And without a doubt, the people who've made the most money in tech over the last 30 years, maybe there's a few Bostonians, but it's mostly in Silicon Valley. Those companies are loaded, you know, so they can pay for, you know, special skills visas, right? And accelerate the whole process. Like when I ran analytics at Nokia for a little while, that's what I did. I just got people into the country, right? Quite frankly, legally on like special visas because they were extremely talented. There's no like way to do that. Like, is there a way for me to go to the government right now in the state and sort of say, hey, I need a subsidy in order to keep this really talented AI person in Boston? No, I could do OPT, right? And then they're gone. I mean, I literally have a guy right now who worked for 2 years for me, Squark, as a post-grad or as a graduate student, then got a job at some big tech company and just laid him off. An email, he's like, dude, I have to get out of the country in 60 days. I need an H-1B. And I'm like, I don't have the capital to do that, right? Well, I might, but you know, there's thousands of people like that. So that's my sort of take on it. And again, like, I'm not debating that none of the premise is true. I just haven't seen any of the data.
That's great. Thanks, Judah. So we've got the ingredients. It's not organized enough. We've got a lot of talent is coming and leaving. That's kind of a symptom. Are there other major problems or root causes that people want to highlight?
So I wanted to kind of
I think. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna emphasize what Judah just said, that and we face the same thing, that if you were to look at the distribution of our AI engineers, heavily slanted to non-US citizens that we're either going through H1 process, and to exacerbate this further, there's a lottery system on the H1 side. So what happens is that we're trying to make decisions on, well, I've got one from certain demographics, they're from China and India, the likelihood of them getting in the lottery is lower versus somebody who's from Myanmar, as an example. So we're playing those odds with our pool of hires, and what we do is then we circumvent it by just going for the green card as quickly as possible, which is a burden from an expense perspective for us. But if you kind of look at it from, if somebody's trying to bootstrap a company, they don't have the capital, that's going to be a huge hurdle for them, because then better allocate a certain significant amount of capital for their the green card processing fee, because they can't just rely on the H1 lottery to retain the talent that they've had on OPT for a couple of years. They've trained, now that they've become productive, oops, the lottery didn't come through, they have to leave. So that's clearly a problem, which requires throwing money at it. But if you don't have the money and you're bootstrapping a company, then you're out of luck.
And Mahmood,
I agree. Go ahead.
I just want to clarify one thing. Mahmood, I just want the H1B green lottery problem, that's not endemic to Boston, right?
No, it's not. No, it's not. But what my point is that if you're a big company with tons of capital, I'm kind of comparing a startup that is probably trying to optimize its cash and retain its talent versus someone who is capitalized and trying to deal with that. So I think that kind of, I don't know what Massachusetts can do about it, but I think that should be from a, if there are any levers to pull there, we should explore those levers. And I don't know if there are any levers, but to your point that this is a national problem, not a Boston specific problem.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
let me just throw in, like,
I agree.
we could petition for subsidies.
Right. Say again, Judah?
Oh, no, I had my say. I didn't mean to interrupt. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're saying you can subsidize. I mean, first of all, I think what Judah said makes a ton of sense. We should be fact driven. And so I think part of the stuff we should do in the next 2 months is to get more facts. But, if you look at the fact that there's so much big tech out in the Valley, that my guess would be you have some effect where big tech is willing to subsidize or go get green cards for folks. And I don't know, Judah, what do you think? I think it costs, what, 50 to 150 grand to help somebody through the green card process. Would that be a fair number?
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of exposure to the prices recently with inflation, because we've done a lot of OPT and just haven't had the capital do it, because I know it costs like that. And
okay,
let's yeah, there's also
but that's the order of magnitude.
Yeah, exactly. It's huge. It's huge like that. So like subsidies, like again, like it's a federal thing. So I don't know what Massachusetts can do, but we can call to light.
Right.
Well, I just have to be too political, but there's misallocation of capital, right? And that could be used to help fund innovation in a different way. Like even trying to deal with mass ventures or whatever, the state's venture capital arm. Like that's small. There's like 2 guys that do it or something like that. It's just the scale at which if we want the state involved, right, which the state will want to get involved, like, they need to be aware of gaps and deficiencies in areas where like this thing could improve. And it's clear that like the political space in of itself is ineffectual and, doesn't know this stuff at all. And even if you look at like who they put on the task force, I looked at it and I was like, I'm glad Rudina Cesare from Glasswing is on it, because she actually has AI experience. Like, there's a bunch of really like powerful, wealthy, connected tech executives, straight up, right? Everyone knows I'm straight up, but none of them are really like AI professionals. There's like some guy, Osama from Northeastern who knows it, right? But like, go ask anyone on there to code a classifier. Ask them to explain what an AUC is. Ask them to name 3 different types of activation functions, right? Not gonna be able to do it. So like, there's just a gap in the state's ability to service the Boston tech community in this stuff. And that is a problem. And the question is, like, do we want them involved? Like, should they, or is it just let the free market go and get the government out of it? I don't know what the right answer
I think
is.
that,
Definitely.
yeah, I would encourage us to not just take the existing structures, but to think of like new structures that we might create. I mean, Broad and Whitehead are completely, there's certain enabling stuff that came from an act in Congress where, you know, back when Whitehead was started, where they allowed big pharma to share data with researchers, which wasn't allowed before that act, but that was at a national level. But, you know, Whitehead and Broad, I don't think have gotten any dough from the state, and they have the ability both to help with the green card process. But back to your question, Paul, I mean, I think in addition to, I think by having big tech out in the Valley, they subsidize a bunch of folks who might go to them for a while, then they have a green card, then they can go into a startup. And by the way, they also have a lot more local wealth, right? So I think that we have to, if we want to have it in Massachusetts, we have to create the ability to get access to that talent, not put the burden on the startups to pay the $100,000 to get somebody a green card. And I think the other thing that happens much more in the Valley is there's much more translational research done in AI. So, you know, you look at the kind of stuff that, you know, Stanford has funded, you know, you look at Cal IT2, the supercomputing lab between UC Irvine and UCSD, they do a ton of translational research. So, you know, between the bench science, I mean, even DARPA, when Google started their Google Car project, DARPA had done the translational research through the Mojave Desert Challenge, so that when Brin, you know, called up Chris Urmson from CMU and said, look, come to Google and do the self-driving car, the government had already paid for the translational research. That's the stuff that Broad does. That's the stuff that Whitehead does. We need the same thing in AI, I think. And that doesn't have to be a governmental function. So I hear you, Judah. We should be fact-driven, but I think trying to do it all just through the existing structures in mass politics, I think, is going to be a frustrating effort.
Thank you, John. Yeah, if I could just pause, I'd like to move to shovel time. So let's talk about, you know, who is interested and able and wants to sponsor one or two small projects. Or this has been a great initial discussion. I'll walk the talk on my end. If people haven't aware, we've been trying to at least keep a list of Boston in-person AI events, and just a little behind here. And this isn't perfect, but it's at least a start. People may have seen there was some, I forget who put it on LinkedIn, but there was I think it was like 85 AI events a week in San Francisco, or some ridiculous number. So that's at least one thing mine and Dan Eaton over at Mass General is trying to do. But anybody else want to sign up for a small task so we can check in a week or next month when we get together?
On the sharing the word of events, have you talked to Jonathan Chang at Market Social? He has a really great kind of method of doing that and hosts one for Boston tech and startup events. Is anyone else on Jonathan Chang's text updates? Oh,
No,
Sam would be for
can you
sure.
connect me? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send that over. I'm starting to do it. I live in Connecticut now. I spend like half my time between Boston and Hartford, but I'm starting to do it here. It's a phenomenal tool and template, and he may be able to help push that forward more broadly too.
Has he already solved the problem? Does it already exist now?
Exactly. Yes. So good to join forces, or I'll share it with you. It'll make sense when you see it firsthand.
Okay, but I mean, is there already the problem I was trying to solve is getting a list of all the in-person AI events, and no one could find it. Is he already doing that now?
Yes, he's doing it, and maybe he's missing some, but so it'd be good to either collaborate, or it could be yours could be purely AI focused. His is including any kind of, like, I've heard of some of the meetups that you all mentioned on his list, but it's more broad than just AI focused meetups. It's tech and startups in Boston, but certainly includes a bunch of them.
Right.
Jess, if I understand his model correctly, he's just creating a platform similar to Eventbrite for very tech focused events for people to be able to understand, sign up, and just get access to links. So this is something you post to his website and just through crowdsourcing.
It's a little more community driven than that. He has a centralized calendar and a text he sends out once a week. So it kind of comes to you and reminds
Nice.
you of the best things going on. I'm gonna pull the link and share it with you all so you can see. Also, I can share.
The challenge I see with that is we're just pimping somebody's consulting business. You know what I mean? And like sending it all to him. Like I think, Paul, you were trying to create something that was not really even pimping your consulting business or your business, right? You want to create something that you sort of, you know, if I ever talked about my companies at the Boston Gen Ed meetups, no. So like it's all,
I don't think it's quite like that, Judith, but I mean, certainly it's valuable to create your own community. I'm using his platform to do it in Connecticut, so we could use this platform. He is a Eventbrite competitor, but also does this broader.
Yeah, what I'm saying is like, I personally am not interested in fueling a person's calendar who owns a company that's trying to like make money. Like, I'm just like, you know, what's in it for me? Straight up, I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I would
absolutely do
my
this.
sort of saying, not to argue, is like, my saying is like, you've used the Boston calendar before. You ever go to that, like Boston events, Boston calendar, whatever it is, and it's got like the 82 most popular Boston events, and it's like, you know, Shakespeare in the Park, and you know, flea markets in the South End and stuff like that. There needs to be one of those. And I would say if anybody should own it in Boston, it should be Paul, because he's doing this, right? And the calendaring function of somebody to publicly put something on the calendar is like trivial. It's done like tomorrow. It's done like actually in 2 seconds. You know, probably
How
do it
about
next
it's
hour.
Judah who owns it?
I don't want to own it, but Paul, I think Paul should own it, right?
Yeah, and this is just an example of what it could look like. So hopefully,
yeah, that's
No, I think
exactly
we
it.
need a calendar. Let's just, okay, we need a calendar. So that's good. And Paul, you currently own it.
I don't want to own it, but I'm happy to do it until I find a new owner. So if anybody wants to help me with that, that's great. So that's one action item that I'll give a checkup on in a month to see if we can make some progress. Would anybody else like to step forward with the mini
Okay,
project?
a lot of people said factual, and Judah, in fact, came back at me when I said 50% leave, and it's like maybe not quite right. Correct. So I think we need some, I don't know what it is, but we need to collect facts, right? There are several communities. There's an academic community who can tell us exactly how many we graduate and how many I leave, because they track them, right? And then I'd love to see factual needs from the corporates, from what VCs see. I just really believe that we need the factual representation of what we have and what really the problem is.
So Judah, Miss Judah, Luda, have you seen the 100-page report
Yes.
There's
Oh,
some facts
100
in
page?
there.
No. 100 page I didn't.
Yeah, so this is a whole bunch of facts and problems. Here's demographic. So that's one thing.
So how do we commit it? That's my question. Now, I mean, we can get a summary of this, but we are focused on talent, right? And talent for startups and corporates, talent to stay in mass, right? That's kind of what we're trying to figure out, whether there is a problem and what the underlying things in the problem, right?
Luna, one thing just to
Mhm.
just for this group to consider, I think putting ourselves into kind of the state's shoes and figuring out kind of what are the key goals for them. I think they're actually really okay with talent leaving the state as long as talent continues to come into the state at an increasing rate, or that we're continuing to train the next workforce. If the next Google is created in Boston, it's grows for 5 years and then moves out to Kansas, for example, I still think the state would consider that a huge success. They would try to keep them, but that's still economic development. That's still local jobs. That's still high paying, great programs. So I don't necessarily think that they might be concerned about talent leaving the state, but as long as company creation is happening in the state or company curation is happening in the state, then that's something that's really interesting to them. As long as they have that first part, then it's okay if it's a huge success if a company grows out of Boston and moves to Tokyo, for example.
So I want to encourage us, can we move the homework? So Luda, are you going to sign up for homework, Luda, or you want just proposing?
Yeah,
this
I was trying to get an understanding of how do we become factual. Everybody says, let's get off facts. And I can try to figure out what are the facts here on the corporate, academic, and put something together with whoever wants to help me.
Great. Does anybody want to help Luda?
Hey,
All
Paul,
right.
here. I'm happy to help Luda.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, JP. So we
Thank
got
you.
one person, JP. Thank you. Who else wants to lead a small project or effort?
I'm as I mentioned at the beginning, I am going to definitely see if I can come up with a blueprint for a entity to be a type of hub that is for a physical co-location of a lot of these founders and to bring practitioners together. And Judah, I'd be really interested if you'd lend your opinions on this, and for everyone else as well, to think about a common values framework for that community that could be connected with this group, it could be connected with that group, as a sort of an early statement of code of conduct and values and so forth that we might want to put forward to the state as we encourage something along the lines of an RFI, as David mentioned at the beginning.
That's great. Wonderful, Sam. Does anybody want to help Sam or be a part of that initiative?
Yeah, it's very similar to my effort. Yeah, I would like to work with Sam because
Thank you.
I really think that we need to understand it first, and then it goes into the next step, right? To create the value statement.
Great.
Yeah,
I'm
there are a lot of
happy to
synergy there.
do
You can
that.
put that there as well, Paul. Happy to help out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, JP. Well, wonderful.
And there's an example of I just shared like from years ago. I can't even remember. It's had to be like 10 years ago or 12 years ago. But this is like, and this is now a defunct organization. But this got people excited and it rallied people around like this idea of ethics or code of conduct. You can see I shared it in the chat. So there's a model. You could probably put that into Chat GPT-4 in the next 6 minutes, have the entire code of ethics in the first draft.
Exactly.
But rewrite it for AI in Boston, right? And boom. It'll look good. And I'm happy to help on that. And my goal here would be like growing the economy, right? Not focused on an individual company or an entrepreneur or but like an effort to ensure that over the next 10 or 20 years, right, the right frameworks have been in place in the state so that the technology economy, which is largely AI driven in the intelligence revolution, is going to continue to sort of scaffold up. And all these things that have been brought up are part of that. So like that to me is the main mission, right? It has to be like higher order, no like ego diminishment, like get people excited to be here and do AI, and that grows the economy. So that's sort of my goal. That's why I started the Boston AI meetup, right? To do that precise thing.
Sorry.
So wonderful, everyone. We'll go ahead and end here. So Luda and Sam, thanks for stepping up, and the three of us will give a status next month on the same time. Let's keep getting the word out. We're slowly building this little basic website. I'm trying to get email sign up here. I mean, I'd love to see us keep growing one step at a time and get a number of working groups that are doing really tactical things that make a difference. And great conversation.
Yeah. Could I ask as a favor, Paul, just quickly as a follow-on from all of these action items? I think all of us in this meeting have access to your doc, and I would love if we could put emails in for those of us who do want to be in touch, just best means of contacting. I have most of you on LinkedIn and I have some of your email addresses, but it'd be great to just have that in one place if you guys are comfortable.
And make sure, that's a great suggestion, and make sure, Sam,
Yeah.
you're talking about this doc here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great.
Paul, can you add me? I don't think I have access. It's
Sure.
chat.
Let me stick it in the
It's-
chat.
jess@raise.vc.
And Paul, just one more volunteer for the calendar work stream. And I think we can even kind of make it to also include a directory and maybe also find ways for all the organizers to collaborate in future events as well. So that's a few other things that we can add to that one.
Great, great. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. And let's keep the progress going. And this is the baby step on a really big mountain, but we only get up the mountain if we take one step at a time. So thanks, everyone. Have a great, great weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks.